I remember distinctly. This was relatively recently with Aurelius. He's my 2-year-old. I'm like, I want to be more present with him. And so I had this bad habit of when he would be playing or we'd be playing together, when he would go off to do some playing on his own. So him and I would play with cars or something like that, right? And then he'd go off and then start playing by himself. And I'm like, oh, he's by himself. I'll just get on my phone and do some work. So he's over there. I'm over here doing this work on my phone. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm just going to be really present. At the very least, I'm just going to look at him and observe him and watch him and you know what I noticed? And this broke my heart when I noticed this. I'm watching him, so I'm not on my phone. He's over there playing by himself. Every once in a while, he turns up to look and see if I'm watching him.
Yeah.
And I realized, holy shit, I wonder how many times he did that to me. And he looked and I was on my phone.
I had the same epiphany.
Did you really? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a tough one.
Watching my son play, and they just want to know you're watching. That's
totally
really all it is. It's like, and if you're not, even if it's just for a second and then they see you on the phone, it's just like, it has to affect, part of their psyche a little bit.
100%. That was one of the things. I mean, we didn't get everything right. It was one of the things we got right because Katrina and I both agreed upon that early. And it doesn't mean there hasn't been slip-ups where one of us starts with it, but it's so great that we both were on the same page and that the other one calls the other one out.
Yeah.
So like if we're all in the living room, Max, me, and her, and one of us pulls our phone out, it's like, what are you doing? Get on your phone and then like call the other one out and like right away. Slap it out of my hand. Yeah, and so it's just been something that we've been really good about that, and even like the TV, like for the most part, it's I don't want him to see me sucked into that. I can still manage to go. I can go to another room and go up to the office and go do that if I really need to go take a call or I really need to go answer something, because that happens, right? Yeah. There's times when you're running a business that we have to put fires out or you don't anticipate that, and so there's ways to
life.
Maneuver around it. But I think it's so important that when there's play time and you're right there and you're interacting, that he doesn't see you like that, Well,
too, like I've actually had to verbally announce that I'm doing emails or I'm working, and it sounds ridiculous and silly. I got to do that. But like, I'm like, for 20 minutes right now, like I'm doing emails, I'm on the phone, like doing work. And like the kids know
I think
I'm doing
that's smart. I think that's smart because you're showing the intention and they're not just thinking or
the dad scrolling.
Or subconsciously.
Like, farting around on there, like just, trying to ignore.
By the way, dude, when you do this, because we were pretty good with TV, but recently we're like, let's almost eliminate it to the point where the only amount of TV that we'll let them watch is about 15 minutes before bed, like a treat. Okay. So get ready for bed, 15 minutes. We set a timer. He watched. So other than that, there's nothing. Okay. It's a lot of work because you have to be on all the time. So, we had this break where we were off and I was home with Jessica and we didn't use the TV at all. And you were on. Like it's not like you can't put the TV on and it's so alluring to turn it on to give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Right.
So you don't do it. It's like you're signing up for a lot of work, but I think the it's totally worth it. I mean, we were talking about it and Jessica and I are like, you know what? You can't become a better parent without becoming a better person. You have to become a better person.
You got to adapt. Yeah.
That's it. Bottom line.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like the advice that we give around like fitness. Like we had live callers and we talked to a caller and said, about like mobility and stuff. And like, it's something he avoids. And so it would be one of those things that I would tell someone like, just do this and then see for yourself. And then you make that call. I feel the same way kind of with like parenting in a situation like this, right? Like you don't know that you don't know. Like I have so many friends that have never actually disciplined themselves to take the iPad or TV out of their lives and then actually do the work of like, oh my God, this is an exhausting week. We're not doing any iPad, but pay attention to the kids' behavior.
Totally.
Yeah. And it was so obvious.
You can see the difference when they go back on.
We did it enough times of, let's try and let it in. Oh, let's try and let it out. Oh, let's give them this much time. Let's only give them this much time. And we played with it enough times to go like, there is a very clear difference in and even an amount of time. Like you talk about a small window, like 15 minutes. We found even up to an hour is not bad. As soon as it gets beyond a total of an hour of time in front of any sort of tech like that, the iPad or the television, we see negative effects.
Like more
irritability, the behavior. He doesn't listen as well as he doesn't go down for bed as easily. He doesn't sleep as long. Like, I mean, a whole host of things, which, by the way, only makes all those things more difficult. So you think as a parent, you are helping yourself out by putting them in front of that iPad for an hour or two. But then what you don't realize is you make nighttime and bedtime and them listening to you more difficult. So you really are
and then you want to use the TV more.
That's right. So you're really only trading one for the other. You're temporarily making it easier for you in that moment, but you actually make the rest of the day more difficult for yourself. And I think when you tease it in and out enough times as a parent, if you're aware, if you're paying attention, just like somebody who is learning about eating correctly for the first time and pulling certain foods that don't agree with them out, if you're become aware and you pay attention, it's not hard to close you.
No.
It's not hard to convince you to do that.
No, you can see the value. And but speaking of awareness, that kids are the most present people ever. Like children are so present and aware of everything that's going on at all moments. What TV and electronics and that kind of stuff does is actually teaches them to not be present and not be aware. But when you take that away, like, when little kids, like I said, I have a toddler and his language is developing so rapidly and he's saying things and phrases that we didn't necessarily teach him. He's just saying them. And then you realize like he hears and sees everything. They have to be present. It's a new world to them. So everything, they're paying attention to moods and what you're saying and changes in the room and what's happening. And what electronic does is actually teaches them to disconnect. And there was that study I brought up a while ago that shows that it prevents children from learning how to regulate their emotions because they learn how to soothe and disconnect.
Yeah.
So they're, I'm upset, TV, boom, disconnect. They never learn, or they don't learn as well the skill of emotional regulation.
Way of coping, yeah.
Which is super. So what they said in that study was, if you are going to do stuff like that, like watch TV or whatever, to interact with them at the moment, to make it an
which to me
experience.
is exactly what I see. When I don't, when I allow them,
when I put it on,
when I put it on, allow them to do it, the things that I'm challenged with is his behavior and his ability. Like Max is so good about his routine and his time, the things that he does. That if it's okay, it's bath time. Okay, okay, Daddy, 2 minutes. Okay, 2 more minutes, and then we go up. All right, and he's like, if it was one of those days where he got more, and we saw this over vacation because we were looser on vacation with some of the tech and stuff. If I allow him to do that, and then okay, it's time about no. I don't want to. Like, what?
Yeah.
No? When you tell me no. Like, you don't even tell me no. But he does tell me no then. Yeah. And then when I'm, yes, you are. No. And I don't want to. Later, Daddy, later. And it's just like, I see that clear difference of when it's been a day where we've been outside playing and we've been doing physical activity and it's time. He's like ready.
Dude.
Yeah.
So kind of similar topic. So we've been learning about teaching young children how to have a good relationship with food, which is different than what I would have thought. So I always thought, well, you teach the kids, this is healthy, this is unhealthy. You talk to them, this is what we're eating, this is what we're not eating. But what we're learning, and this actually is quite effective, I'm seeing it now with my toddler, is you do sacrifice initially a little bit of nutrition so that the child develops a good relationship with food. So here's what you do. You set out 3 or 4 things. 1 or 2 of them that they like. The other one of them that maybe they'll eat. And the other one that's kind of experimental. You put it out in front of them and you say, hey, it's it's snack time to eat. And then you let them eat what they want and not eat what they don't want. And you continue to introduce the foods that you want them to. And eventually they start to pick it up and eat the foods. And what it does, they develop this better relationship with food versus this, finish this.
They chose it that
Don't
way.
eat that. Yeah. You can't eat this. That's unhealthy. Eat that. That's good. And it's working. I would have never imagined that it would have worked this way, to where now I'm introducing these foods. I'm not saying anything. I put it in front of him, and the first 10 times he won't touch the new thing. He'll just leave it. That's fine. No big deal. Yeah. Hey, snack time is over. Or can I throw this away? Okay, blah, whatever.
Well, and it's such a trip too. I noticed this even with my kids, and especially Everett, because he's the most picky, that their palate changes, and it goes like every. I want to say like almost like on a 5-year schedule with him. Like all of a sudden he's like wants to try all this new stuff, and he was like eating fish, and we're just like, Courtney and I are looking at each other like, what? You want to have this? And it just like you give up hope for a while because you're just like, I don't know if he's ever gonna like come around. We're always gonna be like trying these methods and doing this like, well, let's try this method, and eventually just. Like overnight, he just decided on his own. Like I think it just really had to be on his terms. That's just his personality.
That's exactly it. Because
now, when you look back though, Justin, because I know that you guys had different like consistencies with Everett and Ethan around their eating. Do you attribute any of that to the eating behaviors that you guys created, everything from breastfeeding to the whole foods that you were preparing yourself for Everett and Ethan, do you think that had anything to do with it, or do you think it's purely they're
I think I know what you're talking about. Like when I was describing a little bit of a difference there, but like, and Courtney corrected me. She heard that episode. It's like, no, I did the same thing. Like she's like breastfed him same amount of time, if not longer. Had like pre-made a lot of those blended options where you put like spinach and kale and all that, and then had that. And fed him with that. So it was just interesting that he just completely had a different palate and was just very much drawn to only like 3 foods and was like all like carb heavy. But yeah, I think it's for them, for Ethan Everett, it's very much of a personality thing. And again, I don't know specifically that it's like I could just divide it in half of like Ethan is completely Courtney personality and Everett's completely like me, but it's very close.
Yeah.
And so I was very much like that. When I was a kid, it was very hard for me to eat new foods and to be convinced otherwise, because I wanted to buck, I wanted to buck the system.
Well, so that's just it, right? So this has totally changed my paradigm on the whole thing. The most important skill you could develop in a modern world around food is to have a good relationship with food. In the past, it was understanding that we don't have a lot of food. I got to eat all this, or I'm going to miss these nutrients, or I'm not going to be healthy. Right. So you look, and that's stuck around. That's how we were raised. That's how our parents were raised, and definitely our grandparents. But today, there's so much food everywhere that the adults that succeed in this environment, they just have a good relationship with food. They don't use it to to lull themselves. They don't use it to distract themselves. They don't use it when they're depressed. Mm-hmm. They just have. So the most important thing, and I would have said completely different if you asked me 5 years ago. The most important thing today, that I think now today with my youngest kids, is the relationship part. Not the like, you have to eat that, you don't have to eat that, but rather giving them a sense of a feeling of autonomy, learning to kind of feed themselves, kind of creating barriers that they're not necessarily aware of. Like I give them the options, but I give them enough options, and I know that there's at least 1 or 2 things that I know they'll eat, so that they can. And if they want more of that, that's totally fine. And then there's meal times. That's the other boundary. This is meal time. This is snack time. Oh, you're hungry? Snack time will be here in 20 minutes or whatever. Yeah. That's pretty much it. And it's working. It's really weird.
And to kind of, go further into that, like what we found too is that Everett was really into the cooking process of it all. So he got into that, and Courtney started to really kind of work with him on like creating recipes and doing stuff with her.
That's Max.
So it was like game changer though. He'd actually eat it then.
Yeah, if they cook it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like, duh, it's like such a no brainer, but we just didn't include him in that process, in the beginning.
What an interesting thing. I've never thought about that. Although, so we're pretty lucky. Like Max is not a picky eater. I mean, he'll eat pretty much anything that we'll put in front of him. Although he does gravitate towards carbohydrates more. And we have to be more actively aware, but that's just on us. That's just us making the choice of making sure we put that in front of him. Mm-hmm. But I do know he gets really excited to try the food that he makes. Mm-hmm. So that's a cool strategy. If there is anything that I struggle to get him to eat more of, is to actually probably have him prepare it in the kitchen with Katrina, because he loves to do that. He absolutely loves to cook with her.
And
anytime.
You could do that when they're even younger. I mean, because Max is, he 3?
Yeah, he just turned, he's barely, he's 3.5 now, right?
Yeah.
So, but he's been doing that for the last year.
Yeah, because you can have him do something. Like, I have Aurelius, like, he'll like grab the seasoning for the meat. Like, he can't do anything else. So I'll just have him like sprinkle it on or whatever.
Yeah, he just loves to get up on, like, we have a stool to get him up so he's at the height of the
like
counter.
one of those Montessori.
Yeah. So he just gets up there and like, Katrina, hold this, hand me this, pass me that. And he's not really doing anything.